Good evening. It is the EPL panel show for the American Scouser TV. It's me again, unfortunately. So if you've just had your dinner, I apologize in advance, but that's the way things are. But we're going to have a fantastic show. Right now, it's me and Shay, and we should have Alex joining us later. But right now, we have two supporters of two European stalwarts. Teams who've actually won a European trophy and can brag about things. But Shay, how are you?
Doing good. How are you doing today?
No, not too bad. As I'm sure with everybody in the hump of the week, completely and utterly jaded and exhausted. I can't wait for the weekend.
We're a couple days closer to Friday, so
that's exactly the way I look at it. Although I have to work Friday, so man. So here's what we're gonna do tonight. We're gonna talk about the games for the week, as always. We will have a little chat about VAR. And what we all feel about it, because the referee for the Forest Liverpool game will not be refereeing this weekend. So we'll talk about how useless or useful that may or may not be. United just a shambles and much welcome shambles, but we jumped on Chelsea last week, so let's jump on United this week. It's always fun, and then we look to the weekend ahead. We have Alex coming in like a super sub. Alex, how are you?
We are. I'm good. We just adopted a puppy, so
there you go.
The whole thing.
And the conversion starts now.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll be wearing their own Fulham jersey soon enough. But so let's start with the games for the week. Obviously, the big game for the weekend was the City United game. Pardon me. An absolute shellacking for United, which we will talk about a little bit later. But let's start with you, Shay. Aston Villa, that's a good victory, I think, 3-2 against Luton. They aren't always an easy team to play against. They like to be awkward, but that in the heel of the reel, as we say now, that's a big 3 points, isn't it, for your season?
Oh, it was massive. Like I said, we were up 2-0 in the beginning. It looked all, done and dusted. Typical Villa. Second half, we forgot that we had to play the match, let them come back, and I was just sitting there like, well, here we go, drop points. And the 89th, 90th minute winner to win it was just, icing on the cake. But like I said, you can't count Luton out. I know they got smacked last week or 2 weeks ago by City, but it's just, there's a team that's not going down without a fight. And then the league giving Everton those points back, I think it's definitely going to spark something in them. They're going to go all out for the rest of the year. So Forest better watch out. They need to step their stuff up.
Now, here's the thing about it, though, Shay. Not even too long ago, a game like that would be almost, you would imagine the scoreline would be reversed, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, I mean, the way that Emery has turned this team around, I could see it going to up 2-0 Villa and then just losing it. Like, it could have been Luton scoring the third goal, but they persevered, that age-old word, and face adversity, like American sports like to say, whoever comes from adversity to win it. But no, it was a good win. I just hope they can keep this up. I know, like we were talking before the show started, we have the game against Ajax tomorrow and then Spurs on the weekend. So it's 2 big games coming up quick, and hopefully they stay healthy.
Do you think, I might have asked you this before, but just as the weeks go by and Emery just, shows his absolutely fantastic ability as a coach, do you worry that the more success you get with him, the more chance there is of Real Madrid or Barcelona going, you know what, we like him, we're going to take him? Because they usually go when it's one of those big kind of clubs, even from Liverpool.
I think so. It may or may not. I think our biggest issue is I saw a report come out, like, now here comes financial fair play creeping back up. Apparently they're looking into our books. I was like, of course, the 1 year we actually do well, they're like, oh, Villa needs to sell one of their big players. I was like, typical. We break the top 4, top 6, and, here comes the league trying to, hey, you can't do this. Whereas Chelsea can spend billions of dollars and they're fine. So it is a worry in the back of my mind. I mean, he's done an absolute great job. So, like you said, maybe Barcelona, whatever they're trying to do. But I don't think if any sane manager wouldn't go there because the absolute turmoil that they're in, even though it is still a very massive club, that's way too much of a headache.
Yeah. Alex, Fulham, that was like a resounding victory, really, wasn't it? It was like a proper, because I think you might have been a little bit skeptical beforehand, like last week when we talked about it. It looked like it could be a tight 0-0 or a 1-1 kind of game, but that was as dominant as you could expect, wasn't it?
It was. I I mean, this is of all the results that are. I talk about, Fulham in mid-table matches having to show up and then try to stake a scalp. I wouldn't count Brighton as a scalp, but they're solidly a top half team. And so for Fulham to come out firing like this, especially on the heels of such a good performance last time out, is kind of like, well, holy smokes. It feels good to see Rodrigo Muniz. Like, nobody can watch that guy play and like hear an interview and see a video of him from training camp and not want him to be successful. So I'm so glad to see him finding a pretty rich vein of form here. He's got 5-5 now. So, we forgot on deadline day, Fulham brought in Armando Broja from Chelsea, and he's gotten like 30 minutes total because the second he came in, Muniz took off. So, no, it's been exciting. It was good. That's a really, really impressive win for Marco, and they got things going in the right direction. Tough one this weekend against Wolves, and then an easy one against United. So Sheffield United. So.
I would have gone either way.
I know. Well, we already got the easy one for United out of the way.
Yeah, they did that last week.
Yeah, but no, a great win. This is awesome. That's the kind of win that it's fun to be in the Premier League for these kind of things. Is especially a club like Fulham, you can take a scalp in United, and then the next week turn around and take a not a scalp against Brighton, like I said, but get a big win. That's a big win for Fulham. So, it's exciting. This is what you hope for.
Yeah, you're only 3 points off 10th place too. So big matchup.
I know, and on the Fulhamish podcast, one of the main Fulham fan podcasts, they're saying, all right, the 8th spot this year could be European. Are we thinking Europe? And most of the guys were like, relax, like calm down. But that's the joy of being a Fulham fan, is you can hope for that, is you can look to that and you can say, maybe we can get there. So that's the exciting part. We're in the thick of it, which is fun.
But also, kind of the tradition is for, let's say, just the smaller clubs like Fulham to get to that 40-point mark as quickly as possible and not have to worry about relegation. But the way things are down at the bottom, it is right and proper that Fulham should start thinking about that 8th place, because you don't look like you're in danger of collapsing and getting caught anywhere near that relegation trap at the end of the season.
No, with how bad Burnley and Sheffield United have been this year, it really was like we just need to be better, essentially, than one other team to stay up. And that was pretty quickly, I think, over the course of the year. Pretty quickly, I think, watching Fulham play, realized like we're not one of the 3 worst teams for sure. So I think that it's always in the back of your head. I'm sure, Shay, even you too. Like, it's in the back of your head that like a couple 6-7 bad results in a row. Maybe not this year, but normally for Villa the past several years, same with Fulham, 6-7 bad results in a row, and you're right down in the bottom. So luckily early on this year, that anxiety for the most part left. And so it has been a little bit of like, okay, let's build on this. But it is a great relief that Burnley and Sheffield United are looking to be maybe the 2 worst teams in the history of the Premier League. I know Derby was 10 points, but Sheffield are on track to give up, I think, over 100 goals this year. It's outrageous.
Minus 50 right now is their current goal difference. That's
historically bad team. Both of them, and Burnley are very bad. So that does take a lot of the anxiety out. You can start punching ahead a little bit when you're not looking behind so hard.
Shay, the Arsenal Sheffield United game, speaking of historically bad teams, it was a shellacking for Arsenal, 6-0. But Sheffield United really are that bad, aren't they? Like, so bad that you can't really put any stock in any kind of scoreline against them. Do you think that it underlined Arsenal's title credentials, or was the opposition something that had to be taken into account? Because essentially, it looks like even Manchester United could beat Sheffield United at this point.
Yeah, I'd say a little bit of both, just because, I mean, they were up 5-0 in the first half. Like, they didn't even try. And they basically let off the brakes or let off the gas in the second half. Like, that could have been a 8-0, 10-0 match. And I want to say, I'll give respect to Arteta for doing that, but he should have told them to not let up, as bad as it is for Sheffield fans. I'm sorry, but like, with how close this title race is, these goals matter now for them. Like, we don't want to see it, but if they would have scored 10, I mean, it would have given them a little bit better of a chance of if they somehow draw with Liverpool and goal difference wise. But then, just like you said, Sheffield, I mean, 72 goals they have let in, a minus 50 goal difference.
Yeah,
it's bad. So I would say the only saving thing is, if you're a betting person, bet against Sheffield United anytime they play, at least to cover the spread, however they do betting in soccer. So,
Alex, Brentford Chelsea, a hidden London derby, if I remember correctly. But like Chelsea, just there's just no spark to that team at all. Like, is there? I mean, they're almost like the Chelsea of the '80s for me. Like as an older dude, I don't even know how I got the title of dude. I must have got a promotion there somewhere. But Chelsea Brentford 2-2 would be something you would see in 1987 when Dennis Wise was playing for Chelsea. It just doesn't look good for anybody concerned, whether it's Todd Bowley or Maurizio Pochettino or their scouts or the players. They really do need a hard reset, don't they?
Yeah, this is the kind of result that Brentford, who are now in the thick of a relegation scrap, which having watched them the last 2 years, you wouldn't expect, but they're right down at the bottom, the business end of the table. It's a good result for them to get a point, to steal a point at home, and they were up. They had a 2-1 lead late. So for how depressing that must be for Chelsea to come out of the Legoland, that's what we call it, Legoland Stadium, the GTEC, to come out of there scrapping a point in the last 10 minutes. Like, it's not a great look, especially against a Brentford team that's been pretty poor all year long, even after getting what's his name, Tony, back. So I don't know. Yeah, not a good result for Chelsea. I think, especially when you're in the state that they're in, whether they like it or not, you have to start looking at the schedule and the fixture list and saying, okay, where can we pick up points? Where can we make a push to solidify? I mean, God, I'm saying this, solidify top 10 for Chelsea with this budget and this roster. They're starting to look at that now. Of how can we pick up points? Where are we going to pick them? And they would have circled this as 3 points. So to come out with one and have to rescue one late is bad.
Shay, for Pochettino, he has to be looking over his shoulder at this point if it continues this way. Because the further away he gets from Europe, the harder it gets to get in there without spending money, which it looks like they're going to get to the point where they're not going to be able to spend the money because FFP, in inverted commas, which only applies when they're not big clubs. When you're not a big club, it doesn't, or when you are a big club, it doesn't apply. When you're not a big club, they hammer you. But I mean, he has to be looking over his shoulder because that is a horrendous misuse of resources at this point, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We've talked a lot on this podcast. They've spent so much money and brought in, and I will say, this is a very talented team. It's just there's no identity. We said there's no leadership to the team, and you bring a Pochettino, everybody has this thought in their mind. I did for the longest time. I wanted him at Villa just because he was a good manager. What he did at Southampton was crazy. Goes to PSG and can't do anything. Can't win the league at PSG. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And then you come to Chelsea with basically an open checkbook, and they still can't do anything either. I don't know who they're going to bring. I think they're in that kind of position right now. Like, nobody knows what to do. Like, I don't think there's any manager in the world right now that could fix that team. It's just too many identities, and Bowley buying anybody and everybody that's got any kind of potential on FIFA is what he's buying. He's like, yep, we're going to do it. So he may not make it till the end of the season at this point.
Do you not think Sam Allardyce could go in and for like 10 points of wine?
I mean, actually, we say that. Sam or Bruce was still able to coach. He would steady the ship.
Yeah,
Hudson needs a job.
I mean, he could he steadies the ship with his face by the looks of things. He just stands in the way and lets it hit him. But let's move on to the big game of the week, United and City. Alex, it was for us Liverpool fans, probably for the Arsenal fans watching it the first half. It looked like something could happen, some shock result could happen that would favour both of us teams. But then they seem to remember, oh, hang on, we're Manchester United in 2024. We can't be doing this leading thing. But if you've watched the game and if you've watched any United this season, they are so atrociously undercoached, it looks like. Yeah. Is this a case, do you think, is Ten Hag's views not getting across, or are they getting across and the players are going, look, we don't want to do any of this. We just don't care. So we're just going to do our own thing when we get out on the pitch.
It is hard to tell because I turned in not long after Rashford's goal, so I missed that. So I got to see City kind of grow into things and then obviously take over in the second half. But you can see that the players on the pitch, like, outwardly are showing emotion, and outwardly are, like, you can see Bruno trying, like, direct guys off of a corner. He's defending a corner. He's directing. He's pulling players and he's shouting. But the body language then from the guys who are receiving that is not great. They're kind of looking around like, what are you talking about? I think maybe that is the emblematic part. Is there people who are yelling and trying to lead or trying to direct, and then the guys who are on the receiving end of that are kind of like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? What are you even saying? So I saw that a couple different times of Bruno. Bruno specifically comes to mind, but the quote unquote leaders trying to pull guys in and out of shape, and it just not working, and no one knowing what he's actually asking them to do. And I'm not sure if that's Bruno trying to be a leader and doing what he's seeing, or if that's Ten Hag saying, Bruno, you're in charge, keep the shape, make sure guys are. It was odd. I remember watching it being like, that's not a great look. And I don't know if you watched the broadcast, they talked about it. That was the first time United have lost a game after being up at half since 2014.
Yeah.
Which is hard to believe with this United team.
It really is the death of a legacy, isn't it?
I did. That's any team. That's a long time. I don't know what that says, but I think Haaland missed a sitter late in the first half or early this second. I can't remember when that was. 10 times out of 10, he puts that back in the net. And you could see a building of City just starting to take over and United crumbling. And it's nice to watch. I feel bad for AO, but oh well.
Shay, I don't want to pick at a well-healed scab at this point, but watching United there kind of reminded me a little bit of Villa in the days of like John Gregory, when you were like looking for manager after manager to try and recapture that early 90s, mid-90s success that you had with Ron Atkinson, then later on with Martin O'Neill. I think he did quite well with you. At least for 2 seasons before he crapped it up like he always does. But it also reminded me of Villa under Steven Gerrard, which was it seemed to be a case that the players didn't know what Steven Gerrard wanted from them. And not even in the sense that the basics of the game. They just didn't know what the basic plan was. Are United suffering from a clash of personalities between the manager and the players, or is the manager really the wrong person? He's a manager by reputation rather than ability.
Almost, I agree with what Alex said. I just don't think they understand what he wants. And that's kind of crazy as, these guys being professional athletes. Like, hey, we can't understand what he's wanting to do and we can't replicate it on the field. And I mean, we saw him have success at Ajax. I don't know if it's because he was able to mold the team from, like I said, it's all youth system. So they're coming in as, fresh kids, 16, 17, playing in the youth system, coming to the senior team. And he's able to tell them, this is how we're going to play. And them being so, young and not have experience in senior matches, they listen to him and actually, do what he tells them. Here at United, you have a couple people that are been in the league longer, like Bruno, who's trying to be a captain, but he's not going to be. I mean, he's just a terrible player in general. And just not being able to relay it back to the team. And I feel like that's where Harry Maguire should be coming into his own, because he's got the experience of being a captain and being in the league longer, and he just can't do it. And I just don't think they respect him as that leadership role, unfortunately.
I mean, how can you?
When team is just kind of
when you get so publicly thrown out on your ass like Harry Maguire did, and I don't know, was that Solskjaer, was that Ten Hag when he didn't play for 6 months, whatever it was, he just didn't play. Yeah. And so how do you come back from that as a superstar, brought on a big money deal to then
and then just try to be
but then
that makes you think too, when they had Jose there, they were all in shambles and he's over here getting them to second place, and he's constantly said that was his hardest task to do, was to get them to second, and that's coming from him who's coached everywhere and won a Champions League with Porto. You would think, hey, let me take this team, win the Champions League, but no, United with all these superstars, that was his hardest. So I don't know, same thing with Chelsea, they can keep throwing money at it and keep getting new coaches, but I don't know if that's what the root issue is. And we're all here for it, obviously, as fans of seeing them suffer. But it's just it's crazy how a team with this much money is just.
It's similar, issues that, Burnley has a lot of issues right now, but one of them is that it seems, I read this online, I can't take credit for this take, but when I read it, it makes sense, is that Vincent Kompany right now is not managing Burnley to try and stay up and succeed and hang on in the Premier League. He's managing Burnley right now for his next job. So he is trying to implement this style and implement this reason to play, but they just don't have the guys to do it. The horses are not in the stable to play how Vincent Kompany wants to play at Burnley. And he's saying, I'm going to enforce this. I'm going to make them play like this. And if we get beat 4-0, we're going to get beat 4-0 my way. You see that with Marco Silva a little bit, but it's a lot more successful because he's slowly tweaked it to do that. But you see the similar thing with Ten Hag right now. But there's enough latent talent in that squad, in that roster, to carry them up to 6th and to beat the teams below them because the guys are just so much better. But it's the same problem where is Ten Hag just saying, like, this is how I'm going to play, this is what we're going to do, without any regard for like what the players in the field can actually do, and they're just riding the talent. And Burnley doesn't have the talent, so they're riding the talent down. It's a similar situation it seems they're in, and I'm not sure the answer is.
Shay, you mentioned Ajax there for Ten Hag, and one of the great things about Ajax is one of my favourite clubs in history. But one of the great things about Ajax is they do have, regardless of who the manager is or who they buy, the youth teams from under 8 all the way up to under 18s and then into the senior teams play the exact same system. So if you're the left wing back in the Ajax system at 8, you're going to be the left wing back in the Ajax system at 18, 19, 20, 21. Yep. Whereas United don't have that right now, and they were famous for it. The entire United system during the Ferguson years went from the kids all the way up to the grown-ups. Yeah. Is it possible that Ten Hag would benefit from having a sort of a technical director that could implement that throughout the club? Because he doesn't seem capable of doing it. Or is it just the case that Ten Hag got lucky at Ajax and we're going to find, as we do with so many of these fancy, fashionable managers as they go on down their careers, that their initial lightning bolt success is not replicable anywhere?
I agree with that. Like, that actually was a perfect point. I didn't even think about that. Like, a well-oiled machine from the youth teams all the way up to your senior team. Like I said, Ajax plays the same system throughout the age groups, and I feel like that is a big thing, and I think United doesn't do that. So him as the senior manager should reach out to the youth team manager and be like, hey, I need you to implement my style at this day and age, because he's obviously shown that he's going to give youth kids a chance. What's his face? Manu is only 18 or 19 years old. Like, he's clearly bringing in kids that are not or he's not afraid of bringing in youth talent. So, like, that should be where he should start that up. And, like, hey, let me build that way. Just maintain what he's doing now. Like, they're not in any true turmoil of, like, getting relegated. They're perfectly safe. Like, obviously, Europe is where they want to be, but this is the time for him. Like, hey, let me just do what I need to do. And like I said, implement that Ajax system of let's have the youth team play the exact same way throughout the years, and then have them implement what I want them to do in the senior team. And then you don't have to worry about spending a bunch of money. You can go buy all the youth kids for like under 20 million, which is still crazy for a kid that's 15, 16 years old now. Like, the game has gotten absolutely absurd. But that's the thing is, are they going to give him the time for that? I don't know. You know how United is with this new owner. They may say, no, let's bring in, I hate to say it, bring in Xabi Alonso, but then he's going to be in the same situation again too. Like, here you go. Here's some money, buy 1 or 2 players, not win any games. We'll figure it out again, kind of thing. So,
yeah. Okay.
I was just going to say, Alex, just, look, I look at that thing, and then one of the great things for us Liverpool fans and for me that with Jurgen Klopp is that Liverpool have that same thing, is that every team plays the exact same way, which is why those kids look so great. Having been promoted up in an emergency situation, they don't look lost or out of place. They know exactly what they're supposed to do. And what I was going to ask you, Alex, is do you get the sense of the same thing at Fulham? Because it seems to be a great plan for clubs that don't have resources to start making sure there's an identity within the youth team, so that you don't have to keep buying an average left back just to cover for the left back you have, because you could just promote the under-23 player and he's going to do the exact thing you need him to do. Is there a sense of that for Fulham, or is that something that they don't have the resources for quite yet?
Yeah, no, Fulham's academy is, I can't remember what the rating system is, but it's the top academy. It's the top rating system. So they invest quite a lot in it. I think a big issue pre-Scott Parker and then during the Scott Parker years was 2 things. One, the lack of stability. So it's really, really difficult to throw an academy player in when you're in a relegation fight. If you're scrapping for your life, that's a real tough spot to put a 17, 18, 19-year-old academy player or graduate in. Just say, all right, good luck. Hope we stay in the Prem. But then conversely, if you're fighting for promotion, that's also a really tough spot to throw a kid in. Now we saw Fabio Carvalho did that really well, where Marco Silva said, all right, this kid's the real deal. Let's trust him and put him in this role. And he shined. But not every player is like that. And so that is part one. Part two was just Scott Parker was a dimwit and just didn't trust or play any of the academy players. And so there's not a generation of players, but several years with the players who there was no first team path. And so Fulham was churning out these players that were really, really good. Fabio Carvalho, Harvey Elliott, like these guys were in the system and there was just no path to the first team. I see a change now where there is now. Jay Stansfield is on loan at Birmingham and he's been tearing it up. Luke Harris is another Fulham youngster who's shown flashes. So there are guys in the system, and Marco has shown a willingness to, in the right spots, throw the kids in. Luke DeFugerol was a wild little center back out of nowhere who has played minutes this season and Cup and preseason has been really good. So to answer your question, there was not before, and that was a real sore spot among a lot of fans, and it seems to be changing, that there is now starting to be. If Harvey Elliott saw first team minutes, maybe he doesn't leave. If Fabio Carvalho really believed that there was a project to build towards, maybe he stays. But could have, would have, should have.
You mean Liverpool Academy graduate Harvey Elliott?
Yeah, I know exactly. That's I know, and good for him. Like I think a lot of Fulham fans are like they're happy to see him. I think there's a little bit of smattering of booze sometimes when he comes back to the crowd. Like it's good for him. It makes Fulham look good that you can take a kid and sell him off. That should have gotten more money for him. That whole system is flawed, and I hate it. But it's good for him when he goes off and does well. Fabio Carvalho got done dirty. What a bad life move he made, but he's living with it now. But yeah.
But that's like I remember that like people laugh a lot when I say this if they didn't experience it at the time. But Wimbledon, the old Wimbledon before they became AFC Wimbledon and Milton Keynes Dons, they were famous for playing that lumping the ball down the field, long ball with all those tough players. But a lot of great players came out of that. Their little whatever with their youth teams didn't have academies in those days, and went on to play for Arsenal and Liverpool and all the other teams simply because they had no money, so they had to put it all into the youth. So it's always a good thing to do that. Shay, for United, in terms of Aston Villa's place, because it delights me to see how badly they're doing. It delights me to see how bad Chelsea are doing. But also, as I told you before, I have a soft spot for Villa for the Irish connection that they had for so long in the 80s and 90s. Does it give you the sense that there might be a changing of the guard? Because United don't seem to be able to fix this problem for the past 10 years, going on 11 years now at this point, since 12 years actually since the last league title. 11 years gone on 12, since the last league title. And they're not fixing it. They've thrown managers at it. They've thrown money at it. They've bought in some of the best players. They've brought back some of the best players of all time, and it hasn't worked out for them. But clubs like Villa, they're not overspending. They're not going for how many World Cups did you play in, X player? We'll put you in as the manager. It's like, who's good at it? So we'll get him. He's got a plan. Do you look at that performance this weekend and you go, you know what, that's going to be United for a long, long time, and we have a chance to establish ourselves as one of the big contenders?
Yeah, I think so. And it's almost a lot of these teams now, because other owners are finally saying, like, hey, as long as you can find the right staff and find the right system, doesn't matter what you do. Because Brighton, Villa, like I said, Fulham could be on that chance now. Like now that Sadiq Khan's son has taken over, I'd almost say even Arsenal. Once Stan Kroenke finally just said, all right, I'm going to give it to my kid, and his kid actually likes the game and the sport and understands it, look how much better Arsenal got. Because for years, Arsenal's the same way. Top four every time, throw a bunch of money at it, and then just whatever. His kid comes in, takes over. He actually is like, hey, we're going to run this properly. I think that's what Villa's owners are doing. That's what Brighton's owners are doing. And like I said, you see United, you see Chelsea, you see Spurs, just like, hey, we've been the big teams for so long that have had the money and never had to worry about it. And now that they see that the rest of the field is actually becoming more competitive and actually able to compete. Granted, the leagues over here trying it in their power to make sure that doesn't happen. Like there's definitely collusion going on because they don't want that. And I feel like, these are the times for Villa, for United, West Ham, for Newcastle, for Brighton, for Wolves, for Fulham, those teams that are there. I would say even Crystal Palace, for all their little turmoil, like they were constantly in the top. This is their chance to take over Chelsea and United. before they do figure it out. Because as much as we want to say like they'll figure it out here eventually, just because they have so much money and such a huge fan base that like they're gonna have enough money to where it's gonna eventually hit. Hopefully it doesn't. So they're on that path of like the Dallas Cowboys. So like, it's kind of funny that United fans or Cowboys fans, just kind of two teams made in heaven.
And the Yankees.
And and about the Yankees, like they're all the same. These historical teams haven't won anything since the 80s and 90s. So,
so let's move on from one controversy to another. VAR drama in the Liverpool Forest game, but drama all over the league almost, it seems, every week. And then you compare it to like the Bundesliga or the Champions League, and you see completely different versions of VAR. It's almost like the PlayStation 5 version of VAR versus the Xbox 360 version of VAR in the Premier League. But Alex, I'm not a fan of VAR at all. I never was when it first came in. I like the game to be the game for every level. And we see in the FA Cup, you have some games that have VAR in the same round, and then other games that don't, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. But is it something that can be tweaked to make it good in the Premier League, or is it something that they should consider maybe keeping one or two elements and just scrapping the rest and going back to how it used to be?
This is hard because I think the main point that I hear about VAR, one of them, is that it really does suck the joy out of goal scoring, where for both sides, where if you score a goal, you're constantly sitting there going, God, I hope there wasn't a handball in the buildup. Or like, God, I hope he wasn't offside marginally. But it also is the flip side is when you get scored against, you sit there and go, maybe there was an offside, maybe there was a handball. And so instead of just feeling it, you're just in this weird limbo. And then by the time it's confirmed, it's over. So there is a value to it. Like, I think at the end of the day, there's a value in getting the calls right. But let's be honest. I heard this on another podcast. Like, none of us deep down actually want the call right. We want the call right for our team. So like, you can sit back and if for Liverpool, like let's say a correct VAR review disallows a goal that would win them the league, you're not going to be the whole rest of the year going, at least the system worked correctly. At least it worked, the integrity. You're going to be furious. And so I think if we start with it that none of us actually want the right call, we just want the call right for our team, start with that and realize like, okay, they're never going to get every call right. And I think when you start with that lens of, we need to get every single call right, it's going to fall short every single time because you're never going to get them all right. And some little bit of uncertainty is okay. I think, for example, like the offside line should not be a millimeter thing. It should be the judgment of did the attacking player have a benefit here? Like, is this player so far beyond? If you need to pull out a slide rule to figure out if the player's offside, he's onside, bar none. Things like that to tweak it where, yes, it does involve a little bit more subjectivity, but there's a much greater width of lenience because if we're parsing like hairs with offside and onside, it's not worth it. It's not what it was supposed to be for. So,
Shay, like on that note, like the original reason for the offside rule was to stop cherry picking, was to stop the teams just putting a player up in the 1800s when they wore gloves and woolen shorts and hobnail boots with spikes on them back in those days. But to stop cherry picking essentially, and even then it was 3 players between the goal and the defender, the attacker and the goal when the ball was played, reduced to 2, which was the famous 1925 rule change, which opened the game up and instantly increased the goal count. So even back in the original days of offside, it was number one about not giving too much of an advantage, but also once they saw that it was reducing goals, they had to change it because no goals means no fans. We all understand as soccer fans, it's a game of space and time and opportunity, and it's not you go down and score, then we'll go down and score, and whoever scores the last wins the game. That's not the beauty of the game for us. But at the same time, we need goals. Otherwise, there's not worth watching. Just play a possession game. We'll see who has the passes. But is there a sense that it's becoming too legalistic with VAR? As Alex says, a millimeter offside. If it's the 3/4 of the way up the field, like not too deep into the attacking third, it's probably not going to be hugely advantageous. So why are we looking at to that minutiae other than to give the VAR people something to do?
I think it's just to give them something to do, and like you said, like the millimeters, like literally, I remember it's still 2 years ago, but like a cufflink, like how the cameras aren't even that clear. Like it literally looks like Alex's background half the time when they zoom in. Like, how do you know that's a shirt? Like, are you sure that's just not because the pixels haven't pixelated? So like I agree with you. Like they are getting too technical with it. And I feel like it's slowing the game down too much. And now it's almost like if they do it, for a fact that there's going to be 8 or 9 minutes added, and it's just making the games last too long, opening up for injury, and then sometimes controversial at the end. Like I know we're going to talk about it later, but like the Liverpool Nottingham Forest game, like the game was over and he let it go and go and go, and then he finally calls it. Like they need to give it a little bit better of a margin of error. I feel like now if it's a full foot or half a foot and you can clearly see it, call it. Like we have that. Or I keep harping on this. This is a billion dollar sports league. Have a centralized system go over this. Every other sport in the world does it. I don't understand why England and soccer are just so anti against this when they want to change things and they want to stop all this from happening. Like it's not that difficult. All these games are on TV.
I think it's kind of a farce when you think about it, that you're trying to and we're talking about offsides here, but any number of these type of slow it down and look at it over and over and replay. One of the beauties, like you talked about, Maka, one of the beauties is like this is such a free flowing, open game of movement and space and time, and it's everything about it is inexact, right? You can't really tell if the ball is fully out or not unless you're right on the line. And so it's all judgment. Everything is judgment based. And so to have this farce of like, in this one specific instance, we're going to stop the frame, draw a line, and make it precise. It's ridiculous. It's like in football where the 75-year-old linesman is like, and the ball was down about right here. And then on fourth down, they get the chains out and measure it. I'm like, dude, the other 80 plays of the game, you've been eyeballing it. And then on this one play, you're going to pull the chains out. So go to a system where it really is based on the spirit of the law of, is this giving the attacking player an advantage? Whether it's a handball, whether that's this and that, is it giving the player an advantage? Now, again, that does open judgment to it. And we've seen with PGMOL, judgment from referees is not necessarily the best. So that opens up another slew of problems, but I don't know. I don't know how to fix it. It's a mess.
Shay, let me ask you this, but I'll open it to Alex as well, because it was my suspicion in the original planning of having VAR. Is it possible that the IFAB and FIFA and UEFA and the Premier League instituted VAR as a way to attract American fans more?
I would say yes and no. I think it was going to happen eventually because the way everything is now is modernized. And I feel like they saw that, like, these sports have had video replays since the 80s and 90s. And soccer has always had replays, but they've never actually had the refs go in there and do it. Now, obviously, as football fans, like, we want to see it, the game flow. But I think you need it because it has come in handy sometimes. We can't say it's, the worst thing because it has come and helped because there's times where, you definitely need a VAR. Because the human eye is not going to catch it all, or you're going to have more referees on the pitch, and they're not going to ever do that. But I feel like now that the referees have just gotten way more reliant on it, and they doubt themselves, and I feel like they need to go back to that. Like, don't doubt yourself. You're still the rule of the land. Like, it's you. The VAR is there to assist you. It's literally called the video assistant referee. It's not the video, like the first team ref. They just need to go, like, I don't know, over the summer, like the entire referee association needs to sit down and like they need to properly go over the rules, and they need to sit down with other sports and be like, look, how can we fix this? Because there's controversy that is blatant now, and like they can't keep getting away with it. And if they do, then like it's going to turn away a lot of people. And I think that's maybe the harsh thing. Like when fans stop watching it, that's when they're going to realize that we need to stop this.
Or they just watch the championship where they don't have any money for VAR.
Exactly. Yeah, that's when the championship lower league's going to start.
That's why Ryan Reynolds and the other lad are in Rex, and they know what's coming. They know everybody's going to be watching the National League.
To your point, Shay, like I almost think I think similarly, but I think one solution would be maybe the opposite of taking, when there is a review initiated, you take the power completely out of the hands of the on-field official. And so there is no second guessing. There is no, I don't want to overturn myself. There is no embarrassment with it. It is truly there is a group of 3 people or 2 people or 4 people, whatever, at Stockley Park. I think that's where they're at. And they sit there, and every single match for that match day, match weekend, whatever, that group of 2 or 3 or 4 decide every VAR call. And so there's some consistency across every single match. Because what you have is like, I think it's the same crew at Stockley Park that will call down. Now they've centralized it. So there's one crew at Stockley Park. They'll call down to the on-field referee, but the on-field referee still has to come over and make the decision. And that's where you get these wonky things where you're like, that's what makes it so different. So that would, I think, ease a little bit of worry that at least, okay, so Fulham gets screwed by a bad handball decision. At least there's the mindset of, okay, they got screwed, but every other team had the same exact group of 3 or 4 people deciding that weekend. And so if there's another similar decision, there's the same group of people with the same rule book and the same mindset on the same day. They had the same cup of coffee that morning, they had the same everything, and at least introduces a little bit of standardness rather than kicking it back to the official who's got to do this farce of like trotting. I've said farce a lot, but this farce of like trotting over to the side and pretending like there aren't people behind them like screaming at him and the managers aren't chirping, and then they pretend like, oh, I saw it differently this time. You're right. Let me go. Like, come on.
Because the momentum's definitely going to change. Like I said, if you're at Anfield with 40,000 Liverpool fans screaming, God knows what, to the ref, because they're close to where he's at.
Yeah, you can see them in the background. They're
yelling. Like it's gonna alter them. Have him stay in the middle of the circle, like you said.
Yeah, it should be a guy in his ear.
Cool.
Yeah, and he's
going to overturn your decision, and then he's like, "Hey, they overturned it. We're going to play ball."
Because there has to be some humility of I can't be everywhere at once. If there's one official, one referee on the field run around, you can't see everything. You're going to miss things, and some humility in that of I didn't see it, and that's okay, and somebody else did.
I just hope they have a cup of coffee each and they're not drinking from the same cup of coffee there, Alex.
The budget is really tight at Premier League HQ. Really tight budget. So I got to share.
Well,
it's probably Kenko coffee as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, if you ever watched the A-League referees in Australia, they literally have to go on the microphone and tell them what they're doing. And I feel like it holds them accountable. Like, they have to tell you what the call is. The NFL does it. We, in college football, like, we'll boo them after them. And guess what? They have to tell the entire stadium and the TV what they just called. And I feel like that makes them hold them accountable. They're not going to call as many bad plays. They're like, oh, shit, I got to get on camera. Or I already care, but I have to actually announce this.
Did you see the NHL recently, the hockey? They something happened where they went to review. And I don't know I don't think they make the call. They get on the headset and they look at the screen. But I think a central team makes the call. Either way, the referee went back to the center ice and said, it was an away match. You're not going to like this, but no goal. And the crowd starts booing. And he acknowledged, like, you're going to hate this, but it is the call.
I say it holds them accountable, and it makes it better. Like, I feel like it's more entertaining because then they're like, oh, the ref actually has to be on his A game because they're
a little sense of humor too. A little sense of humor is funny. So, yeah, it's a mess, Mac. It's a mess.
Let me just ask you one last question before we go on to the matches for the weekend. What I have wondered about for the offside calls with VAR is it seems, at least in the Premier League, every stadium has that overhead camera on the wire that I'm sure is going to snap one day and clock some central defender in the head.
It happened in college football a couple of years ago.
Did it?
It didn't hit anybody, but it like... yeah.
That was the Truman Show. But what my question is should they not be using that camera for the offside because it's overhead and it can actually see the line rather than looking across in some parallax view and trying to get the angle right? Because so many times we've looked at, I know we get a different replay than the referees, but the angle just looks so bad that you couldn't tell from that angle. And then they had the faffing about with the lines and everything as well. It just always occurred to me, and I'm only saying that because I used to play sensible soccer on the Sega Genesis, I think it was called over here, like hour after hour back home, and that was an overhead thing. But if they're looking overhead, they can see the defender and the attacker in line in an honest angle. Is it something that maybe, at least for offsides, they should have a rethink about how they're looking at the offsides before they start looking at what offsides they're calling for? You go for either of you first. Whoever's quicker on the draw.
Like Alex said, like whenever they introduce I guess the sky cam, like obviously this technique has to be retrofitted for it, but like I think an overhead cam would be a huge thing because then you get the top down of the entire match. If you need to pause it, then you can actually see it. Because like if you want to call offsides and you see this guy top down, his head's ahead of him, clear as day offside. Like the body is what it's supposed to be. But that's going to have them to spend money on something that they clearly aren't going to spend money on, just fixing the referee in general. So who knows? This is all like this, in a perfect world, they would do this. You would think they'd have sense of people in the governing body, but apparently they do not. So
let's just say that if they do, that was three thought of it. We should be getting royalties from it. That's what.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah,
we have it on
clip
YouTube
this.
video.
Somebody clip it.
So before we go onto the matches for the coming weekend, let's look at the league table in very small format. But Liverpool top, hey, but it's getting tight there. City and Arsenal and Liverpool, so few pairs between those three teams. Villa in a very healthy fourth position, and I can't see Villa unless your team collapses. I don't see Villa not being in the top four at the end of the season. United are still up there, shockingly, but fifth looks like it's Spurs. West Ham do very well despite Moyes getting criticism from his own fans at times. And Newcastle, for all we talk about Eddie Howe, they're up there and thereabouts. But at the bottom, is it still Everton, Forest, Luton, Burnley, and Sheffield United, or can we count Everton back in or back out of the relegation race and leave Forest and Luton to fight for those two spots, Alex?
I don't think you can count Everton and Brentford out yet. I think Palace might be just about clear. They're at 8 points there. I think they're just about clear. They've had a pretty disappointing season for them, but I don't think you can count Brentford and Everton out yet. I think they just haven't really shown. Everton's shown a little bit of fight after their initial deduction, but they've kind of stayed stagnant there. And Brentford have, if anything, regressed pretty severely, which gives me a ton of joy from the past 2 years. So I still think they're in it. I think the 2-3 horse race for that last relegation spot is Luton and Forest, though. But Everton and Brentford are right there too. I would not feel comfortable at all if I were a fan of either of those.
Yep.
Shay, are you confident in that fourth spot? Are you as confident as I am in that fourth spot? Not being a Villa fan, like.
Definitely. Like you said, I was just looking at the remaining fixtures. There's still a couple of hard, tough ones in there. We still got to play City and Arsenal again. But if they can just maintain, and I mean, it's stressful times watching you blow a lead like that. But that's how you win titles. You got to have comebacks. Nothing's ever easy. So if they can just maintain, obviously this weekend against Spurs would be a big one. But then going to the relegation, like how Dom commented, apparently the final fair play punishment's not going to happen till late April, early May. So like we don't know. They could just say, "Oh, well, good luck, Everton," which would really just, I know for Liverpool fans are going to love it, but that would just be even probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Like, look, Everton somehow start winning some games, they get safe, but then boom, another 10-point deduction, and it just knocks them down.
And the hard part is, like, this deduction they got this season was for the previous 3 years.
Yeah.
Like years. And so if this deduction had been, even a 6-point deduction had been applied last year, I think they would have gone down.
Yeah,
so the teams that went down, Southampton is going, well, hold on a minute. Like, if this was rightfully applied when it should have been, we'd still be in the Premier League. So it's a mess.
It is a mess. Because like I said, Luton has a chance to stay up. Like, obviously they can.
And they deserve it. They
deserve it. They've done a lot better than what we've all predicted them to be at the very beginning of the season.
They deserve it.
That and their stadium from the 1980s and their tight shorts from also the 1980s.
I just want them to update the stadium. Just like let the league just like do something nice. Like let them have the money to renovate.
And to do that, they've got to stay. To do that, they've got to stay up and get that TV money.
But then they should do a double cycle and not just take the money and not improve the stadium.
Well, that too. That's what they'll probably end up doing.
Sell tours. Hey, it's time warp time. Come in here and see what 1982 was like. So let's look at the games for the week. Obviously, the big one is Liverpool City. But that'll be talked to death on the Liverpool podcasts. So let's look at Fulham first, an away game against Wolves. Now, if you were to continue your form, Alex, and take that Wolves scalp, that would be such a positive marker for how your team is doing right now under Marco. Yep.
No, it'd be huge. I think it would show. We talk about. I've said it before, but Fulham fans talk about Fulhamish, and it's just the sense of Spursy is a similar thing of just it being a Fulham fan, and I think it would be very Fulhamish to beat United, beat Brighton, and then lose to Wolves and Sheffield United. Like that would just be so Fulhamish. But the way Marco has this team playing, and the way Rodrigo Muniz has found form, I think Palhinha's just everything about this team right now feels good and feels exciting, and they're not just scoring ugly goals like they did sometimes with Mitro, where he just was kind of at the right place at the right time. They're working things well. They're in the right spots. They're doing what they need to be doing, especially on the defensive end. So, no, I think I feel confident going into this match. And again, Wolves is a tough team, and they have taken some scalps of their own, especially at home this year. So, and he'll be drilling that into the squad of we're going to have to show up with our A game. But no, it feels exciting to go into a match like this, knowing full well that if Fulham play how they could play, they could easily win. And again, as a Fulham fan, that's what you want. You want to go into these mid-table matches saying we should win this. Yeah, it's nice.
If you do happen to win, Alex, how loud will your scream be? Will I be able to hear it here in Connecticut?
You might, man. To take 3 of 3 from United, Brighton, and Wolves. That's a tough stretch for any squad. So I'll take it. You might be able to hear me.
Shay, Villa against Spurs. It's a home game. I believe your home form is really, really good. It's not just good; it's like really, really good. Unless I'm mistaken, but that's an old school 6-pointer right there. And if you win that, it really sets a marker out to the United, Newcastle, West Ham, and Brighton, wherever Brighton are now. That you guys are the real deal this season.
Oh, I mean, to take 6 points off of Spurs this season would be just the icing on the cake. I mean, they've been very upset. I've seen all the Twitter. They're still very mad at Matty Cash for like the weakest challenge on one of their players, and like they've been going absolutely crazy, losing it. So to beat them would just be the icing on the cake, and then just widening up that gap. Like I said, just to secure top 4 is going to be a crazy dream. Like I never thought I'd see it, to be honest with you. I'm pretty sure at the beginning of the season, Alex remembers, I was just happy to finish top 10. We got smoked by Newcastle very first match. Everybody's like, well, so much for this. And then had on an absolute tear.
I think even before you came on, I was like, I don't think that's a real result. I don't buy it. I'm all in on Villa. I'm not sold on Newcastle yet. So we can pull the tape.
Sir Alex even said it too, and here we go. So, just gotta maintain. So it's just hoping for the best.
The 2 biggest games, I think, outside of Liverpool City, in at least in terms of what they would advertise on television, United and Everton. Shay, am I right in saying that's a really tough one to call?
I mean, I would say so, because, like I said, Fulham being able to beat United, they're beatable by every means, and I think the absolute domination of City this past weekend is going to take a toll on them. They haven't looked up to it. But then again, it's also Everton. We don't know which Everton's going to show up. Yeah. We're hoping classic Ginger Mourinho tactics if they score 1 and just defend, and I'd be happy with it.
Shay, Chelsea, Newcastle. It really is the game of 2 managers who are hyped to the gills and not quite fulfilling the hype. How do you see that one going?
I mean, I'm rooting for Newcastle just to keep on with Chelsea's demise. Maybe this will finally, just start off them firing everybody, and we can just see them go under. But Newcastle, they finally got the striker back. I know Sully would be happy just because Isaac is finally back. So for him, I hope to see them get 3 points. It'd be nice.
Alex, Chelsea, Newcastle, is that going to be the battle of the soon-to-be fired managers, do you think?
I mean, I think that I mean, who knows? I might be wrong come Tuesday morning, but I think Eddie Howe's a little bit more leash at Newcastle than Poch does, for right or for wrong. And I think this is, unfortunately for both of them, especially for Poch, this is kind of a must win. Like if you're at Chelsea, and I mean, God, again, look at what their sights are now. If you want to stay top 10, like this is a match you have to win. Fulham are breathing down their necks. Other squads are in and around them. You have to win this at home. And so if they lose this, that's a really bad look for Poch. But again, who knows? But no, I'm rooting for Newcastle as well. Anything to bring scum down, I'll take it.
And Alex, the historically bad team are away to Bournemouth. Is there any way or chance or hope that they can actually get a result there?
No, they're so bad. And Bournemouth, they had a weird high spurt in the middle of the season, I think around Christmas or just after Christmas. I can't remember exactly when, but they looked like they could push for top 10, and they're still up in that kind of in that level of the table there. So I think almost everybody in the table has too much class and ability for Sheffield United, and that includes Bournemouth. Sheffield United are really bad.
Yeah,
really bad.
Shay, give me a score prediction for your game, Villa against Spurs.
I'm going safe. I'm going 2-0. I think we should be able to pull it out, or potentially 3. The way Ollie's been playing, he may just keep going on the scoring board and assist. Just as long as hopefully keep a clean sheet. That's just one thing we have struggled with this year. But I just want 3 points, so I'll take a 1-0 win, obviously.
Let me ask you this very quickly, though, is because I haven't watched Ollie Watkins too much this season, apart from highlights, which is not a good way to judge any player. But does Spurs highline favour him?
I think so. I mean, his pace, he's able to, outmuscle some players too. He doesn't look like the biggest striker out there, but he's actually very, very stout when it comes to holding his ground. And I think he's going to be able to take advantage of that. And I think that's something that the midfield, which McGinn's his little butt turn, he's going to be able to just do one little spin and just watch Ollie run onto it. I think that's going to be our biggest strong play, but then also it's also our weakness too, because we do the exact same thing. So this may be a high scoring game truly, because we both play very high line. So it just depends on who's got the faster center backs on Saturday.
Alex, Wolves Fulham, number 1, what's your score prediction? And number 2, Wolves are reasonably well organised. Do you have the creativity to break them down if they are tight and compact at the back?
So I say 2-0 or 2-1 Fulham. I think Fulham have had a hard time this year keeping clean sheets, and so that's why the clean sheet against Brighton was really exciting. I say 2-1 or 2-0. I think if you'd asked me a month ago or 6 weeks ago, I would have said 0% chance they can break down any type of low block or any type of really drilled defense. But the renaissance of Rodrigo Muniz and his ability to his hold-up play, his running in behind, he looked like a different player. It's really interesting to watch. That confidence just kind of flourish. And then with a player, I wouldn't be shocked if Tom Kearney starts. His ability to, especially if a team sit low and sit down low like that, his ability to unlock a defense is pretty incredible. So I would not be shocked to see him start this and try to cut through. Yeah, 2-1 or 2-0. Hope for a clean sheet again, but I think there's enough firepower now in this with Palhinha back and Willian and all these guys, Harry Wilson coming into form, that I think there's a couple goals in this for Fulham.
I'm not going to ask anybody's predictions on Liverpool City because it'll just jinx it. And I'm working, so I'm not even going to get to see it. And my dad's a City fan, so that probably all works out against me. But you never know.
That's a match of the season. That's a match of the season.
It's probably a match of the season.
That's a title match, truly. So.
Yeah, it's huge.
They should WWE it and have Arsenal as a 3-way match in the game. Just stick an extra goal in there. Yeah. But just remains to say, first of all, thank you, Shane. Thank you, Alex. Fantastic time as always. It's always enjoyable. Good luck to your teams this weekend. Especially nothing against Villa, Shay, but especially I really do hope Fulham do the job against Wolves because they're a nice club. Like that's the same thing with Luton. You have the same thing as Luton. They're a nice club, and we can all spit on Man United and Chelsea next week.
Yes, we can.
For everybody else, thank you for watching and being a part of it. The Thursday show and the Thursday Fantasy show, I think, should be on tomorrow night, where we will discuss Liverpool things and back to reality, as we say. But for everybody else, have a good one. All you supporters of other non-Liverpool Premier League teams, it's great to have everybody involved because this is what it's all about. It's just a game in the end, as long as Liverpool win. That's how it goes. So thank you, Shay. Thank you, Alex. Peace out, everybody. Here's the funky tunes.